G'day crew. A few subscribers have asked me about crossing the South Passage Bar, so I thought I'd put a short video together. I don't want to encourage anyone to try it if they don't know what could go wrong and what to do if it does, so I'm not going to give out any marks for the channels. I'm just going to talk about the bar crossing in general. If you really want to learn how to cross a bar, go with someone with lots of experience, or even better yet, do a bar crossing course with someone like Bill Corten, who trains the Water Police, VMR and the Coast Guard in bar crossing. I'll put his contact information in the video description below if you're interested. The South Passage Bar is 4 nautical miles long, and it's reputed to be the longest sandbar in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm not sure if that's true, but I've heard it from several people. So given the length of it, at first glance you'd think that gives you a lot of options for places to cross the bar. Not so. Now by now you should be wondering what the background image is all about, and that is a series of aerial photos spanning from 2004 to 2024, all of the same area of the South Passage Bar. Now I've got them playing through and rotating, with each image taking about a second, then going on to the next and then restarting the whole thing. I wanted to do that to show you how the channels across the bar change over time. It's really important to impress on you that just because you found the channel once doesn't mean you can go back and cross it in the same spot 6 months later. It moves all the time. If you pay careful attention to the aerial shots that you see on the screen, you'll see that sometimes there's a channel in one spot and at another time it's not there at all. And that's why you really need to know what you're doing to cross the bar, and also why I'm not about to give out any marks for crossing the bar, because any mark I give today might be invalid in 6 months' time. Another reason for deciding to do this video is that over the years I've seen many boats crossing the bar in what I would consider the wrong areas. I had one memorable trip a good many years ago now, when I went out with a guy who reckoned he had found the best spot to cross the bar. Now I can tell you that was a bloody scary crossing. I was pretty young back then and didn't have much of an idea myself. I hadn't crossed the bar by myself at that stage, just with other people in their boats, but white water breaking over the bow of the boat did not impress me. As I said, I was inexperienced, but as far as I could tell, he did not follow a channel at all, and the only way that we got across that bar was that the tide was high. Needless to say, I declined further trips offshore in that particular boat. So anyway, I'm putting this video together to show you that you should be able to cross the South Passage Bar with plenty of water under your keel. If you're crossing the South Passage Bar and you're worried about running aground, then you're not crossing it in the right spot. There's basically 3 channels across the bar. The Amity channel, that's the southernmost one, the so-called middle channel, and the northern channel up against Moreton. Over the years they change, and most of the time you'll find that one is usually a better choice than the other 2, although they may all be passable. However, at times one channel may become more dangerous to use or even disappear for a while. 20 odd years ago, I used the northern channel almost exclusively. I can't tell you the exact time, but I had the hydrofield at that stage, and going out through the northern channel was almost like not crossing the bar. It was that good. Probably a bit of an exaggeration, but given the hydrofield and the state of the channel, I had every confidence that no matter what the weather, I was going to get through that channel okay. Now, a few years ago, the middle channel was my best pick. I really liked that one. And it was my go-to channel because it was a good channel and didn't matter whether I was fishing north or south of the bar. It was sort of in the middle. I could go either way. At the moment, I generally prefer the Amity channel. Where you're planning to fish will influence your choice of which channel to use, but getting to your fishing ground is the most important thing. So pick the safest channel on the day, regardless of how much distance it adds to your trip. The other thing that's worth noting about using the middle or the northern channels is that the shaded area here can be quite rough. I don't mean dangerously rough, or at least not most of the time, certainly not on any day that you should be crossing the bar. If the water in here is dangerously rough, then you shouldn't be going anywhere near the bar. However, it can quite often be uncomfortably rough, and you do have to traverse this area to get to or from either of the northern or middle channels, particularly the northern channel. There's been times when I've come back through the northern channel on a very rough day and had to go back through all this rough area and thought, oh damn it, I've had enough. I'd just like a nice smooth trip home. But you still got to cope with that. So just bear that in mind when you're choosing your channel. If it's a bit rough there, it can be very uncomfortable. Yeah, maybe it's because I'm getting older. I really like my comfort, and sometimes it's more comfortable to go through the Amity channel and travel north once you've crossed the bar. Now these stills show a selection of the tracks that I've used over the years since I've been keeping a record of my tracks. You'll notice that the tracks move. Tracks that I followed at one time are no longer valid at a later date, and I've moved north or south to follow the new channel, or the channel where it's moved to. As you saw in the beginning of the video when I was showing you those aerial photos, the channels move. So you need to be able to read them to be able to make a safe crossing. This is an image from Google Maps. It seems to be more up to date than what is currently available on Bing Maps, although there's no guarantee that it is current enough to plan a crossing. On the other hand, it does have the virtue of being a better image than the current Bing map, so I'm going to use it to point out a few things about the bar. First thing is that this Google image was taken on a day that there were very few whitecaps, so not a lot of swell across the bar. Now before I continue, it's worth noting that when I'm crossing the bar on a calm day, I find it's more difficult to pick the channel due to the lack of whitecaps that mark the shallow areas. On those calm days, I go by the colour of the water and I keep an eye on my sounder. Now let's look at the false middle channel first. Looking at it on Google Maps, you might think that you could get through there. Indeed, on a high tide without too much swell, you probably would with reasonable comfort. But if we look at the Bing map, which was taken when there was more swell, it's apparent that the false channel shallows up considerably at the eastern end. So if you end up going out that false channel and you choose the wrong tide, you could end up having a very memorable trip. A few years ago, the real middle channel passed north of the Sand Island, which is visible at low tide, and was quite deep all the way through. I haven't been through the middle channel for a couple of years now, maybe a bit more, so it could have changed completely by now. Anything I say about the middle channel has to be viewed as historical because I haven't crossed it, as I said, in over 2 years. And I have been told more recently that the middle channel that I used to use does get a bit shallow on the eastern edge, although it is still passable. I'll just also reinforce that I haven't used the northern channel regularly for nearly 20 years, at least 15, probably more. Now, just to harp on the point a bit more, I want to be very clear that what I have to say about the central and the northern channel is general information only. I have been using the Amity channel since the last Brisbane floods. The water from the last Brisbane floods opened the Amity channel up, making it wider and deeper than it was. Now that's changing a bit, as it always does, but even a few years after the floods, it's still a very good channel. Now that's about all I really wanted to say about the general features of the bar. The remainder of the video is going to concentrate on the Amity channel. I consider that I'm off the bar when I have about 10 metres of water below me. So I'm starting this video of the sounder screen on the Amity side at the 10 metre mark and continuing until I've crossed the bar and back at the 10 metre mark on the ocean side. You'll notice that most of the way across I have 3 metres or more under my boat. There's a couple of spikes where it drops to 2.4 metres for a few seconds, but it's over as soon as it starts. If I was a little bit further north or south at those points, I probably wouldn't even see those spikes. And I'm only talking a few metres, 20, 30, something like that. At the time I recorded this video, the tide was about 1.4 metres off a 0.4 metre low. Now that means had I crossed at a dead low tide on the day, I would have had 1 metre less water, so still over 2 metres under the keel most of the way, except for those couple of shallow spots where I still would have had plenty of water, well over a metre. You'll also notice that crossing the bar is not a straight line. I can't think of any time I've crossed the bar following a channel that was in a straight line. And if you're crossing the bar at the right spot and following the channel, you should always have plenty of water under you. You'll notice as I enter the Amity channel from the bay side, I've got to swing north around that sandbar. Then I swing in closer to the island, North Stradbroke Island that is, where the deeper channel is. You can get in quite close to the shore there. But then you've got to swing out again as you're coming towards the end because there's another sandbar out on the outside and you've got to swing up towards the north a bit more. But please don't take those as instructions on how to cross the bar. If you don't know how, learn from someone. It's great to get offshore and chase some of the big fish out there, but above all, stay safe and make sure you are comfortable doing what you're doing. When I was younger, I thought I was pretty good at crossing the bar. I'd learnt from some of my mates, and I'd been doing it for quite a few years. But because I'd had a tinny and hadn't crossed the bar for quite a few years, when I got my new boat, I decided to do a refresher course with Bill Corten, which I've already mentioned. And while I thought I knew a few things about crossing a bar, I have to say that I learnt a lot more tricks from that course, and I highly recommend it. Until next time, good fishing.